Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on the Fantasy Football Fix YouTube channel. In this weekly series, I take a look at who I think are the top 5 transfers in this week and discuss who we should be potentially switching them for and who we should be taking out of our teams, as well as presenting some underlying statistics, some heat maps, touch maps, transfers out, transfers in, and some general FPL advice. I hope you are enjoying the international break as much as possible, but the deadline is now fast approaching, so we need to turn our attentions to either our wildcard drafts or our current teams and look at those transfers. So, without further ado, let's get to today's video. So I don't normally do this at the start of videos, make these sort of disclaimers, but specifically now during the international break with all the chaos that is happening, I just want to make the disclaimer that there are a lot of details unknown at the time of recording this video, which is on Tuesday morning. And also for you guys as well, just keep an eye on all of these different things. And if you can possibly, obviously, if you're on your wild card, it's nice and easy for you guys. If you're not, try and wait as long as possible before making those moves. Yes, it's nice to build up team value and catch those price rises, but it's also important to get as much information as possible. So wait for the press conferences. These are the things that are currently unknown at the time of recording this and that you should keep an eye on. There are multiple key players in FPL that I know a lot of us have in our teams, or a lot of us are looking to bring in, who are potentially injured. The main 4 or 5 that I can think of is DCL, Lukaku, Wilson, and Heung-min Son. Son and Lukaku apparently have suffered minor injuries on their international duties. Now, we don't know the extent of these at this stage. It doesn't look like it's going to keep them out, but it's definitely worth keeping an eye on, and it might put you off captaining them potentially. And DCL and Wilson had the injuries from game week 3. They were both muscular. I think they're both the quadricep as well. So it's worth keeping an eye on those. Again, both look fairly minor, although the latest for Wilson and DCL is that it might keep them out of game week 4. So the first thing to note is that just keep an eye on injury. I will mention a couple of players today that are potentially injured, but I'm going to assume that everyone's fully fit. The next thing to note is that there are potential bans for players that had their club refuse to let them go on international duty, including Jimenez, Rafinha, and more, in specifically the South American countries. Now, we don't know that this is definitely going to happen. I assume the clubs are going to appeal it, but there could be up to potentially a 5-day ban after the international duty ends for those clubs that have had their players refused. So it could be that Jimenez and Rafinha, etc., miss out on game week 4 as a result of this ban. Again, you might know this at the time. Now, at the time of recording this, I don't know for certain whether that's going to take place. The other thing is that for those players that have visited an amber list country, they have to quarantine for 5 days on return to the UK, and after the 5th day they can then get a COVID test, and if it's negative they can return to training. So those players that are playing in international games on sort of like the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they might potentially still be quarantining by the time their team plays. So again, I don't know at the time of recording which players this is going to affect, but keep an eye on quarantining as well. It might be that certain players miss as a result of that. And then the fourth and final one, is Ronaldo going to start? I mean, it's very, very up in the air at the moment, as well as all of these players with all the other issues. Is Ronaldo? We know that he's probably going to be back in training around Wednesday or Thursday, potentially as late as Friday, but it will likely be Wednesday or Thursday, and therefore he should at least get 1 or 2 days of training. But is that going to be enough for Ollie to be willing to start him? I don't know. Anyway, there's a lot of unknown at the moment, but I've still got to make this video for you guys. I still want to give you as much content as possible, but bear all of this in mind when I'm talking about potential players to take out and potential players to bring in. So I'm going to start with one of those players that is potentially injured, and that is Calvert-Lewin. And I don't like to include players in these lists that are potentially injured, because I think if they are injured, then it's a waste of a spot on the video. But I can't not recommend Calvert-Lewin. I genuinely think if you've got a free transfer this week and you're not sure what to use it on, and Calvert-Lewin is fit, I would say he is priority number 1 above Lukaku, Ronaldo, Jimenez, anyone else in the game. I think Calvert-Lewin, with the stats that he's got from the first few game weeks, with the fixtures coming up, with the fact that he's on penalties as well, if he is fit, he will 100% be coming into my team. Now, you can see on the left the people that, the players that managers are transferring out to bring in the likes of Calvert-Lewin. We've got Danny Ings over $500,000 at the time of recording, transfers out. Ivan Toney, Richarlison, Lukaku is being brought out by a lot of players, because a lot of managers, because probably they're on wildcard and they're switching out Lukaku for Ronaldo, etc. So because of wildcards being in play this week, a lot of them do take these transfers out and in with a pinch of salt, because a lot of these will be people just constantly changing on their wildcard draft. And I don't know how many of these will be effective transfers from non-wildcard teams. So, Calvert-Lewin, why should we be bringing him in? The first reason is he's on penalties, and we spoke about this in a prior video, but Calvert-Lewin without penalties has frighteningly good stats. Like his underlying statistics with respect to goal threat have always been fantastic. If you add penalties into the mix, I know he got 2 in the first 3 game weeks, which is very unlikely to continue at that rate. But the opportunity to also be on penalties, it makes him a genuine captaincy option in future weeks. I'm not saying you necessarily would want to do that in game week 4 with the injury doubts, but in future weeks you could definitely, just because of his price, don't let that put you off. He's got great stats. He's on penalties as well. The next 3 fixtures in particular are fantastic. And I think if you're looking at a game week 7 or game week 8 wildcard, Calvert-Lewin's a great 3 or 4 week punt. Burnley, Villa and Norwich in the next 3 are brilliant fixtures. Burnley and Norwich in particular have got very, very poor underlying data from the first 3 games. They look very, very vulnerable. Aston Villa have pretty poor underlying data considering they had 3 really easy fixtures at the start of the season. So those 3 fixtures are absolutely great. I would genuinely consider captaining him in any of those 3, specifically game week 6 against Norwich. Game week 7 against Man United obviously isn't ideal, but then game week 8 and 9 against West Ham and Watford, great as well. So I'd be happy to hold him for the next sort of 10, 15 game weeks if I don't wildcard, that is, later in game week 7 or game week 8. With respect to his underlying statistics, they are brilliant. Expected FPL points of 8.36 per 90. So he's predicted to get around 8 or 9 points per 90 in the first 3 fixtures. Touches in the box, not necessarily the highest, but still getting 5.44 touches in the box per 90. Expected assists, again, we've discussed it in past videos. Dominic Calvert-Lewin is not a creative player. You're not getting him in to get assists. He'll very, very rarely get assists. And those times that he does, they'll probably be like rebounded shots. They'll probably be FPL assists as opposed to sort of your standard traditional assists. His non-penalty XG is 0.49, but obviously his actual XG, including penalties, is a lot higher, which brings his non-penalty XG and XA to 0.55, which is really, really good for the first 3 game weeks, and his fixtures are going to get even better from now on in. I feel like Rafa Benitez is settling into the role as manager. I feel like Everton are starting to respond after their 2-0 victory as well in game week 3. So I really like the look of Calvert-Lewin. If you take a look at his touch map, it's perfect. It's exactly what you want from a number 9. It's exactly what you want from your striker. He's in those central areas and he's in the box a lot. And even when he's not in the box, most of his touches are in and around the box as well. As you can see that little cluster to the right. Listen, I genuinely think Calvert-Lewin should be priority number 1 this week if he is fit. So if you're looking at bringing someone in, potentially you're looking at transferring out Danny Ings, I really, really like Calvert-Lewin if you can get that extra little money to upgrade Ings to Calvert-Lewin. What happens if Calvert-Lewin is injured, you may ask, and there is a very, very good backup option, and potentially you could even make a case for him to be ahead of Calvert-Lewin based on price and fixtures, and that is the forgotten man, Raul Jimenez. And now we have seen him in quite a few sort of YouTube drafts and on Twitter, if you're on Twitter and Instagram. I think a lot of the more serious managers are definitely considering Raul Jimenez, but his ownership is still 3%. So it's not like he's being considered by the masses at all, Raul Jimenez. Now, I think there are multiple benefits to Jimenez over Calvert-Lewin. The first is price. It's 0.8 million cheaper than Dominic Calvert-Lewin, which can go a long way 100% if it could be used to bring in the likes of Ronaldo as well, or upgrade your defence, getting a Chelsea defender. So there are definitely multiple advantages there with the price. The fixtures as well are just unbelievable. Now, I've only included 6 on the screen just for the purposes of the graphics, but this run does continue. It isn't just this 6 weeks that Wolves fixtures look brilliant. We know that they got those difficult fixtures out the way in the first 3, and now they've just got a beautiful run of fixtures that look really, really tasty. Now, it is, I think, based on his historical performances and the fixtures as opposed to the underlying statistics. But there are a few things to mention here. In his first 3 games, he's played against Leicester, Spurs and Manchester United. So not only is 3 games a very, very small sample size, but those 3 games that he did play are against really, really tough opposition who historically, traditionally, and also this season have defended quite well. And he is building up his fitness and he's building up his confidence once again. So it is worth bearing that in mind. When you look at his stats, they're not going to be as good as the likes of Calvert-Lewin or Bamford because he's had tougher fixtures. And he's in a Wolves side that potentially aren't as attacking as those other sides. But that being said, there are a few really promising signs with these underlying statistics. The main thing that I'd like to draw your attention to is 7.33 touches in the box per 90. Okay, that's much better than Calvert-Lewin's, I think it's 5.44. So he's getting in the box a lot. And that is shown on the touch map as well. If you take a look at his touch map, most of it is right in the centre of the box there. You can see there's a huge little cluster of touches right in the box. And there's a lot of other touches in the box as well. I mean, he's had over 21, I think 22 touches in the box he's had in the first few game weeks. So he is getting in the box a lot. Now, his non-penalty expected goal of 0.22, what that suggests to us is, yes, he's getting in the box, he's touching it in the box, and he's getting some shots off, but he's not necessarily getting like high XG chances. He's not getting those clear-cut one-on-ones or those clear-cut chances where he can snap it and shoot straight away. So I think it's promising. and I think you can definitely take a leap of faith, but the data doesn't necessarily suggest that he's going to explode. That being said, I think there is a strong chance for it. I expect Wolves, who have performed really well against those first three oppositions, to do really well in game weeks 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So if you're looking at holding off the wild card until at least sort of game week 7 or 8, Watford, Brentford, Southampton, and Newcastle in the next 4. You can't hope for better fixtures than that. And if you are someone that believes fixtures breeds form and you should look at fixtures as opposed to form, I don't think you can look anywhere other than Raul Jimenez. So probably slightly more punty than Calvert-Lewin, but I think a great alternative if Calvert-Lewin's injured, you can't find the funds, or you just want to go for a bit of a differential, because at 3%, if he explodes, your rank's going to shoot up 100%. So really like the look of Jimenez. I'm definitely considering him for my own side. Let's go on to the next 3 players. So I discussed Diogo Jota in a video for my own channel earlier in the week, and I said a lot of Diogo Jota depends on Firmino's injury. If you don't know, Firmino received an injury in game week 3, and there's rumours that it could keep him out for a reasonable amount of time, in which case Diogo Jota would be essentially nailed, because really the only competition is amongst the 4 of them, and there's always one of them benched, and then that player rotates in, comes in around 60 minutes. But I think if Firmino's injured, Jota should be nailed until he comes back. He should play maybe 80, 85 minutes in most of the games, and then maybe come off late. However, I've had more of a think about it. He started 2 of the first 3 anyway. He started a lot of games last season when he was fit as well. I think there's an argument to be had that even if Firmino is fit for game week 4 or game week 5, and it's only a short-term injury, there's still reason to argue that Diogo Jota is a great option. He might not start every game, but my word, his statistics when he does start are so good that it might be worth the risk. Similar to the likes of Mason Greenwood. We don't know that Mason Greenwood's going to start every game, but when he does, he usually scores and he usually looks really promising. And if there are any injuries, perhaps Mane or Salah gets injured in the next game, you brought in Jota, there's always potential that Jota could start sort of 75, 80% of games, even when there are no injuries to the other 3 players. So I'm definitely growing on Diogo Jota. The main issue for me, and probably for a lot of you as well, if you went for Tsimikas at the start of the season and you've not yet transferred him out, I know to get in Jota, you'll have to take out Trent, Tsimikas or Salah, because you've got triple Liverpool already. So that's the only thing that's stopping me. I would have jumped on Jota already. I probably would have definitely transferred him in game week 4 if I wasn't already blocked by Tsimikas, which is a little bit annoying, but it is what it is. So why do I think Jota's such a great option? I think for a lot of people that aren't wildcarding this week, you're likely to probably be wildcarding in 7 or 8. I think that's the next popular one. In which case, if Firmino has a short-term injury, even not, Leeds, Palace, Brentford, I think are 3 really great fixtures. And I think even if Firmino is fit, due to the injury concerns, I think Jota will probably start game week 4. He might get 5 as well. Mane might eventually be rested. We know that Klopp does like to rotate them as well. So I think personally, if Firmino's not injured, he'll still get 2 of Leeds, Palace and Brentford. I think if Firmino is injured, he'll get all 3. So the fixtures up until 7 or 8 are really nice. This is quite a short-term pick, but I think sometimes you've got to go for those high upside short-term picks. The stats, as I say, are always brilliant. 5.87 expected FPL points per 90. Really strong up there with the best. Touches in the box, that of an elite number 9, like similar to Raul Jimenez as well. We know he plays in sort of that false 9 role, where he sort of drifts between the wingers. I know he rotates with Salah and Mane a little bit, but he is mainly central, and that is shown on the touch map as well. 7.62 touch in the box. A lot of his touches are quite central. He does drift out to the left and right occasionally, but he's in the areas that you want him to be. Similar to Calvert-Lewin, his creativity this season has been very low, but traditionally he has been a creative force as well. And his non-penalty expected goals and expected assists is the highest of the 3 players we've looked at, higher than Calvert-Lewin at 0.58 per 90. Predicted to get 26.9 points over the next 6 game weeks, which is exactly the same as Calvert-Lewin. So you're essentially talking about the stats of an elite number 9 forward, sort of a forward in FPL, but he's in midfield. So he's getting those extra points for goals and clean sheets as well. So I think Diogo Jota, if you're looking at a midfielder for this week and you have unlimited funds and you're not blocked by Tsimikas, I genuinely think Diogo Jota should be number 1 target for those midfield transfers. I think there's an argument that he could even be above Calvert-Lewin as priority number 1, but I'd probably just favour Calvert-Lewin just due to the penalties as well, and then Jota maybe if Calvert-Lewin is injured or you need a transfer in the midfield. So I really like Diogo Jota. Probably will rise in price fairly soon if Firmino is injured up to 7.7. So definitely worth considering ahead of game week 4. Now, this is someone that I think is potentially going under the radar for a lot of wildcarders and also people looking to bring in a budget midfielder this week to maybe redistribute funds to get in the likes of Lukaku and Ronaldo. And I think the main reason that Ismaila Sarr is going under the radar is that Adama Traore's stats over the first 3 game weeks, considering the difficulty of opponents, have been nothing short of outstanding. And I will say at this point, if you're someone that believes in underlying statistics and you're someone that really follows the statistics when making your decisions, I think you can only look at Adama Traore. The reason I haven't chosen him here is a couple of reasons. I think it's well documented how good Traore's underlying statistics are. And it is also well documented that his end product is terrible. And it has been historically for a while now. A really low number of goals. Like, it took a while to get his first goal in the Prem. And even in the first 3 games, he's got in so many promising positions, but he just doesn't seem to finish them off. So I don't dislike Traore at all. I think there would be a strong case to have him on your wild card. And I think if you haven't already got a Wolves player and you want to get them in for the nice run, I do like Traore as well. But in this video, I also like to present you with some slightly more under the radar options, or some options that other people aren't talking about as much. And I think Sarr is one of those players. Now, Watford's fixtures are going under the radar as well. They're nowhere near as good as Wolves' fixtures over the long term. But to have Wolves, obviously they play against each other in game week 4, Norwich, Newcastle, Leeds in the next 4. Again, if you're looking at a wild card in 7 or 8, or you just want a short-term punt, the next 4 fixtures are about as good as you could get, really. Norwich and Newcastle in 5 and 6, is specifically 2 brilliant fixtures. And something that I really like about Sarr is we were having the debate as to whether Sarr would be on penalties when Deeney was on the pitch, and I think it was pretty well established that if Troy Deeney was on the pitch, then Ismaila Sarr would not take penalties. Troy Deeney's now left. I think he's joined Birmingham, so Ismaila Sarr, as long as nothing dramatic has changed since the last time he took a penalty, he should now be on penalties. So you're talking about a direct goal threat, probably their best player, cutting in off that right wing. He's a goal threat anyway, as we've seen. He's got 1 goal in the first 3 game weeks as well. He's a player that can score from open play, but also is likely on penalties now. He's talismanic. You know he's nailed to play 80, 85 minutes every game, probably 90 in most games. Great fixtures coming up. The statistics aren't great again. It's a bit more of a punt. His statistics aren't anywhere near as good as Adama Traore. But I think he's someone that has traditionally a better end product. So you have to weigh that up. Underlying statistics, but are they going to end up finishing it? I think traditionally, if someone creates that many opportunities as Traore does, he will eventually get some returns. But I think Ismaila Sarr is probably someone that needs slightly less traditionally. So if you have to look at his stats, the thing that is very nice is 6 touches in the box. Now, what I would say is that is heavily skewed by game week 1, specifically the first half of game week 1 when he tortured Matty Target. I think he had 11 touches or 12 touches in the box in game week 1. So maybe not as many in game week 2 and game week 3, but as you can see by the touch map, he's a very, very direct player. He likes to attack down the right wing and he cuts in on his left foot. So I really like Sarr. The statistics aren't going to necessarily lead you to think he's the best option, but at 6 million, someone that's probably on penalties with great fixtures and nailed to start and play almost every minute, I think you could do a lot worse than looking at Ismaila Sarr. So I think if you're on wildcard or you're looking for a cheap player to bring in, he should definitely be toward the top of your watch list. Now, the final player is someone that I think a lot of managers have identified. I'm not trying to call myself a genius or a visionary to tell you to bring in Demarai Gray. Obviously, he's got a few returns in the first 3 game weeks. I think he's got 2 goals. He's been brought in by almost 500,000 managers at the time of recording. So a lot of managers are looking to bring him in. And obviously, his price is the main reason to do that. And the reason I've just included him is just to say, in my opinion, I think he is probably the best sort of budget midfielder under 6 million. If you're looking for someone to play almost every week, but you want to sort of redistribute the funds so that you need a cheap midfielder, I think there are multiple reasons that I would be going for Demarai Gray. Now, there are a few things to note. His underlying statistics aren't great at all. It looks like he was fairly lucky, or he overperformed in the first 2 to get those first 2 goals. So I wouldn't necessarily expect that to continue at that rate. But if you think, what are you looking for in a cheap player? What if you're playing with a 3-5-2 and you need a cheap 5th mid, or you're playing a 3-4-3 and you need a cheap 4th mid? What are you looking from that cheap midfielder? Now, I think you're looking for someone that's firstly nailed, which Demarai Gray is, as far as I'm concerned, for the foreseeable future, he is nailed. You want someone that plays as many minutes as possible. He should play sort of 80, 85 minutes in most games because of his fitness, because he's been playing so well. You want someone with good fixtures as well. And Everton obviously do. We've spoken about the fixtures in the Calvert-Lewin section as well. And so I think as a combination of those two, I think fixtures and nailedness, that's what you're really looking for. You're also looking for someone that is a goal threat. And I think the best thing you can do there is get someone in an attacking position. Now, I've seen a lot of people say that they'd prefer Decore at 5.5 million because he makes those bombing run forward. Now, this is something that maybe the underlying statistics won't pick up on. But if you watch Everton, yes, he makes those marauding runs forward 3, 4, 5 times a game. But for the rest of the time, he sits quite deep. If you look at all of Gray's chances where he's been getting into the box, direct into the box where he scores the goals, Doucouré sat on like the halfway line. So I know Everton fans might say, yeah, Doucouré's got a better end product and he's more likely to get those goals potentially. But I like someone that's going to be getting in the positions more so. And as you can see from Demarai Gray's touch map, he's had a few touches in the box and he's getting in sort of around the edge of the box a lot, out to the left where he can score goals from outside the box or cutting on his right foot. So I like Demarai Gray for all of those reasons. Again, the underlying statistics aren't great. 0.22 non-penalty expected goals and expected assists together per 90 is really, really poor. You're looking at a return every like 5 games at that rate. So he will need to up those underlying statistics. But I think he's a confidence player. He's definitely underperformed in the past. He's demonstrated promise and never fully delivered on that. So there is a chance that this could be an FPL trap of sorts. But I personally think he's a great option. I think if you're looking at someone other than Gray, Doucouré is an okay option, but I'd prefer Gray. I think Emile Smith-Rowe is potentially going under the radar. So if you're looking for someone even cheaper, I think he's like 5.4 now, Emile Smith-Rowe. With the fixtures that Arsenal have coming up, could have easily included him here. I don't think he's quite as nailed as Demarai Gray, but I do expect him to start most games, even with the signing of Odegaard. So I really like Emile Smith-Rowe as well. So there are other options around that price, but a combination of nailedness, fixtures, passing the eye test, and some okay underlying statistics. I think Demarai Gray could be a shrewd pick, either on your wild card or in your midfield. Again, if you're looking to sort of redistribute some of those funds to get in the likes of Ronaldo, Calvert-Lewin, and Lukaku up front. So Demarai Gray is the 5th and final player that I'm recommending you to transfer in this week. So guys, there you have it. Those are the 5 top transfers in this week, in my personal opinion. I hope you are enjoying this series. If you have any feedback for it, do let me know down below in the comments. Our daily price change prediction videos will be starting up again soon in the next few days. So do keep an eye out for those as we help you try and build up your team value as much as possible and make sure that you're not priced out of potential moves. I hope you are enjoying the general content on this channel. We're bringing a lot of it to you. So if you are enjoying, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel and enable notifications so that you know when our videos go live. Until next time, guys, thank you very much.